Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So I have just finished my 8.4 completion run, and this is going to be effectively me showing the paths that I took. Now keep in mind that this is not a completion guide. I'm going to explore the entire thing and then I'm going to explain which ultimately were the easiest paths. However, I do have a feeling I found at least a couple of them. And obviously we're going to be discussing a little bit about the boss fight as well, and my general experience. So, realistically, so far at the very least, completion definitely didn't seem particularly difficult, as kind of expected with the new approach to the story content, especially if you do have some diverse RPG options and some of the key champions. Boss fight also seemed fairly straightforward. I'd say it's easier than Behemoth was at the very least to get used to. And yeah, so let's take a look at each of the quests, the path that I took, why I did so. And I'll be brutally honest, most of the paths that I did choose to take were the ones that were kind of easier to understand and less to read, because some of these nodes just have like insanely long descriptions. And for most part, it also worked out perfectly fine. This evolutionary energy path with Healer Hide was entirely soloed without any effort by Toad and Shield. Shield can block pretty much anything and also, deal with Unstoppable that was required later, and Toad completely destroyed it. So I think for the most part, you can use just about any champions here of the appropriate kind of like rank, especially if they do have, well, main aspect here is if they have immunity to regenerate modification, or if they shrug off the debuffs, because then you don't really need to worry about calcifying and losing your health unnecessarily. Shield obviously can block for days, so you never really care about evolutionary advantage, and Toad has regen, easily accessible, and therefore, you also gain that energized buff and didn't worry about taking much block damage at all. So ultimately, this is where I went. On my path 1, all of the fights were done by Shield and Toad, and then this America Chavez fight is again fairly straightforward with any science champion that isn't buff immune. So you can't use Titania here or Cassilang or something like that. The entire point is you just want to get at least 3 buffs on you, which is provided by Raising Sun every time you hit her 3 times. Occasionally you'll want heavy. You gain 200% fury whenever you intercept, and she gets bleed and poison immunity. So it's a fairly straightforward affair. I do not know where the picture went. I apologize because I didn't need to change the connection that I'm using here because my phone battery is almost dying here. Okay, so we got the picture back at the very least, and that was quest number 1. So let's take a look at quest number 2 and the path that I took here. So one second, book select. Probably should have just. Quest number 2 is going to be super easy to explain. Quest number 2 was entirely Ronan. There's a path that Ronan can do every single fight in, and also the boss. I do not know why Kabam did that, but we have personal space Fury node, and there's nothing stopping you from stunning the opponent, so I just brought in Ronan, and I just Ronaned the lot of them. And then there is a Cersei for whom I used Kushala. I think Ronan can still probably do this fight just fine, but I did use Kushala for this one. And then, kind of funnily enough, final boss fight as well. Icarus, you can just infinitely, unlock him too. So Ronan cheesed this final boss as well. Obviously, the center kind of thing about this path is themed. I think it is the easier path as well, but yeah. You do want to special punish and then use Mystic Champions to nullify the Fury buffs that they are getting. Neutralize will not really work because they have increased ability accuracy, so the entire point here is you special punish and then you nullify stuff and then your Mystic Champions get stronger. But I didn't do any of that. I just used Ronan and stun cheese through the entire thing. Then moving on to path number quest number 3, so 843. The path that I took here is suppressing fire, so I just used the Incinerate champions. I used Massacre, I used Shield, I used Human Torch, and it was fairly straightforward. your parries will fail unless opponents have suppression, so you can use science champions that do have suppression, or you can just use incinerate champions. In general, it's make a stand, heavy assault, so you can, heavy spam quite a bit with human torch. Obviously check out the opponents, but for the most part, the only fight of note here is domino. You do want to bring in somebody that deals with domino well, but yeah, for me, Kushala did the fight just fine. I'd probably, if I had to redo it, I honestly didn't notice the dominoes here. I'd try to bring in somewhat better counter for domino, but for most part, yeah, we're just about fine. You just need to make sure you have incinerates or suppression debuffs available to you. Fairly straightforward path. And then when it came to the boss fight, I chose the one with Valkyrie. I have no idea if that's the easiest one or not, but it does have power shield on it, and I just happened to have brought Wiccan on my team, and Wiccan basically soloed the fight. So you do want to make sure you activate, quote-unquote, the right special attack. And other than that, obviously just play Valkyrie. Be aware that she can shrug off your debuffs and so on and so forth. But yeah, just power shield bulk, basically, without too much hassle. Just match the specials for third the tide node. Nothing crazy or hard. And moving on to quest number 4. And here I went for the human torch path. And this one is actually very fun as well. So you want to either bring in champions that have access to precisions. And whenever you gain cruelty passive, you also gain tiny precision. So something like Black Cat is going to be crazy good here, actually. I kind of regret not bringing Black Cat in here. But other than that, you can use just about any champion that hits hard here, because you can get guaranteed crits, because when you dex, you gain a precision buff, and then when you get to intercept, you obviously, get the guaranteed crits here from the critical interruption nodes and whatnot, and yeah, it was just effectively just nuke him down. What you need to pay attention is the fact that I-bomb and A-bomb and I-bomb are both on this lane, so you want to bring in somebody poison immune. I just used Hulk for that and Kingpin. But yeah, this is just pure intercept node and lots of damage, and you can get through relatively quickly. And as for the boss fight, I just used Absman versus Terex. I think Terex here is relatively easy as well. And obviously, Absman in his rock form, not the magma one, the Uru form. Yes, you took the damage from Terex, but you ramped up so fast and you're immune to shock and bleed, so you don't need to worry about hazard shift here at all. And Absman completely destroyed that Terex boss for me without much of an issue. And then obviously we have final quest. Wait, no, not final one. the 5th one. So let's check out what we did with the 5th quest. The 5th quest, this was actually a bit rougher. I did lose a few champions. But here the entire point is you want champions that gain fury buffs. White Tiger was actually crazy good for me here. But, you're going to primarily look at cosmic champions. I use like Nova. I used Vox for a handful of fights. White Tiger. You do need to keep an eye out for fight or flight. So ideally you want to have the special attacks be relatively short. Obviously, I do think that Hyperion, if you have one relatively highly ranked, will do absolutely fantastic here. But yeah, as I mentioned, White Tiger. The one champion that you absolutely do want to be careful of is Strife, because when Strife hits or touches the champion that has unstoppable buff on them, then you get passively stunned. So here, you definitely do want to pay attention to what's happening in this fight. It's a bit tricky, but for the most part, I just basically brought in random cosmic champions with fury buffs and like White Tiger, and everything went perfectly smooth. And for Capsam, I just used Null. It gets a bit tricky until your first level 1. And here the trick is you do not want to hit Capsam while he's stunned. Or you do not want to inflict armor break on him while he's stunned, basically, because then you give him cold snap and then you give him regen. But realistically, when you use somebody like Null, then he gets so many debuffs, but everything's fine. So the requirements here, you use either Colson of Mean Champion or somebody that can consistently armor break. So armor breaks name of the game. And there's also cracking the armor node that gives you a ton of furies. So when you do have a Cosmic Champion that inflicts plenty of armor breaks, you're going to gain a ton of damage, and it went quite fine. The defender has 90% chance to auto-block basic attacks, but obviously Null can kind of bypass that with his mediums and heavies, and that's exactly what I relied on. Otherwise, you do want to have a very buff-heavy champion. Somebody like Angela, I would say, would be pretty much perfect for this as well. But for me, Null worked out just fine. The start of it was a little bit iffy, but Null's regen also came in clutch, so that helped a ton. But yeah, Angela seems like the perfect option there, I'd say. And then the final quest. I would say, and I was told, that the far right teleporter is the easiest path, and it really was. Absman apparently absolutely destroys this fight. This entire path with Power Shield 2.0, and in my own experience, Bishop was crazy good. Like, Bishop was insane on this path. It was like borderline comical how well Bishop did. And yeah, Absman apparently does great too. Now, speaking a little bit about the final boss, from what I have heard, primarily you just kind of want champions with prowess buffs, and it is a straightforward fight. You need to kill him 3 times, and the entire thing is that you want to punish his heavies or specials, mainly specials. So you bait out his special 1 or 2. You need to learn the timing on those. I will be uploading a guide for that as well. And then once you do, you get guaranteed crits for that combo and the special following. The entire thing is you do not do any damage to this boss unless you're punishing a heavy or punishing a special attack. If you're doing that, your one single attack chain will have guaranteed critical hits. Like, for instance, combo into relic, into combo, into special, all of that will do damage. But if you go for a combo into a dashback intercept, then after that intercept, you do no more damage, basically. And the entire fight is effectively tuned around you being able to punish his special attacks that you just kind of need to practice the animations and timing for. You need to kill him 3 times in total, and each phase gets a little bit trickier. First phase is the most straightforward one. Second phase, he will go always up to 2 bars of power and will either throw a level 1 or a level 2, and you're going to have to recognize which special attack that is based on whether he goes unstoppable or unblockable during it. And then in the third phase, you also get rooted, where you can't really outrange much stuff, and it is trickier. And then fourth phase, you just need to dance around for 15 seconds, don't get hit. The best champions here for me definitely was OG Storm. I did most of the work with my 7-star rank 1 OG Storm, but most, as I have been told, mutant champions with prowess effects do absolutely well here. So, Bishop, Storm Pyramid X, Toad, Kitty Pryde's probably can do well, whole bunch of them. And that's pretty much it. Again, relatively straightforward experience. Can't say it was like absolutely deadly or tricky. But, obviously we are playing with different rosters, with different skill levels, different experience levels. But ultimately, I must say I had a fairly good time. I don't really have any major complaints about the content so far. And obviously, I'll be trying to explore it shortly. And I'll get you guys along for the journey because I'm going to be doing it all live. That said, hope you guys have enjoyed the video, found it useful, and I'll catch you guys soon. Bye. Hello there, guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about the next